everybody, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live, where we are celebrating International Women's Day. So happy International Women's Day to you all. I am so excited to be hosting this LinkedIn Live today, along with our guests, who I will invite to introduce themselves shortly. But as we are welcoming people in, we really want this to be an interactive conversation today. So please do ask your questions in the chat as we go along. We will be talking all things career, empowerment, and how we can really create an environment where women thrive. So please let us know that you're here, how you're feeling today, maybe something that you're doing to celebrate International Women's Day, or maybe one word that comes to mind when you think of empowerment in your career. Let us know in the comments. So our guests today are two people who probably need very little introduction, as you've probably seen their faces before in your inbox, you've met them at events, or read some of their blog articles. I know I certainly have. So today with us from Brilliant Inc., we have the incredible Anne Mellinger and Jackie Berg. So I will allow you to introduce yourselves. Anne, maybe we start with you.
Great, perfect. Thanks so much, Lottie, and happy International Women's Day. I'm really excited to be here having this conversation with you and Jackie. I am the CEO and owner of Brilliant Inc. Brilliant Inc. is an employee communications agency that's been around since 2008. And essentially what we do is we partner with organizations that are facing any sort of change and help them use communications to bring their people along the change journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And as I said, thrilled to have you here today. And Jackie, let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Hello. I am Jackie Berg. And happy International Women's Day to everybody. I'm Jackie Berg. I am the head of research and business development at Brilliant Inc. and really proud to be working for a WBENC women certified owned business with our female CEO and owner. So, and really, really proud to be here as well. So thank you guys for having us.
Of course. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. I can see we have a few comments already, so please keep those coming. Let us know where you're joining us from, and please ask questions for the wonderful guests that we have on today. Now, I know we had a bit of a prep call a couple of days ago, and we already managed to fill the time so quick. So I feel like let's just get going with this. Are you both ready to go?
Yes. Yeah, let's do it.
Fab. So I knew that we had a numbers gal with us today, so I really wanted to do some homework to impress Jackie. Now, a lot of the numbers that I'm going to talk about today come from an amazing book that I've read a couple of times now called Invisible Women, which is very infuriating in places, but a book that I would really highly, highly recommend. Maybe Kelly, if you could stick a link to that in the chat for us, that would be fabulous. So we're going to talk a bit about kind of career and empowerment and how we can get to the places where we want to be. Now, there's a study that I think has been spoken about quite a few times. It seems to be the kind of buzz study when we're talking about women in business. But it's a study by Hewlett-Packard that was done a few years ago that talks about when men are applying for jobs, they will apply when they meet 60% of the job requirements, whereas women only tend to apply if they meet 100% of the job requirements. And a more recent study by the Center of Talent and Innovation on Tech Companies found that women don't leave businesses for family reasons, which is kind of the notion that's out there at the moment. That actually one of the main reasons that a woman would choose to leave a company is because they feel stalled in their career. So it's real, it's out there. And then maybe if I could just ask you wonderful people, kind of what are some of the most common hurdles that you see in women advancing their careers? Maybe share some of your own experiences too.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on some of the big ones already, Lottie. I mean, I've been in the workforce for more than 20 years, and unfortunately, not that much has changed. I mean, pay inequality is still a huge issue, and every job type. I mean, we primarily work with knowledge workers, and we might think about those, and certainly the pay gap is real. But even in places like doctors, dentists, lawyers, even teachers, which is an industry dominated by women, they are still underpaid. And another big one is the lack of women in leadership roles. I quizzed my husband this morning. I said, how many women do you think run Fortune 500 companies? And he said 50. And unfortunately, he was about spot on. About 10% of Fortune 500 companies are run by women. And I think what's really disheartening to me is that even in an industry like communications, where women really do dominate, it's still very rare to find a chief communications officer who's a woman, or a chief HR officer, or even an agency owner like me. I mean, I really look forward to the day where people are celebrating me just purely on the merit of my success, not because I'm a business owner and a CEO who's a woman. I'd love to just have that stand on its own. But I think, there's also new challenges that we have to think about as well. There are more and more women in the workplace who are choosing not to have kids. And I think that is a new challenge that certainly we need to consider. We also have to make sure that when we talk about women and it's International Women's Day, that we're speaking to all women, including trans women, because that group of women face challenges that are far beyond even any that we have faced. And so I think it's understanding what still exists, what we can do about it, and what new challenges are out there.
Yeah. And I mean, you both touched on it. And also, Lottie, just to double down even on what you said, this is an incredibly depressing part of the overall discussion, of course, just because we have made not that much progress. And so I'll pile on just one more really interesting and still depressing new study that if you haven't seen it and you haven't dug into this, I highly, highly recommend. So Claudia Golden last year won the Nobel Prize for her research on this very topic. And she talks a lot about the concept of greedy work, which refers to jobs that demand disproportionately long hours and or really undervalue part-time or flexible work arrangements, which of course naturally tends to impact women in the workforce as well. So the research is still really pouring in, and there's still quite a bit more work to be done.
Absolutely. And I think probably everyone who's with us today could write down at least 5 things where they think, the fact that I'm a woman has probably not helped me in this scenario. But we don't want to spend heaps of time dwelling on the bad stuff today. And of course, we have 2 pretty successful women with us on the call. So I want to try and steal as many tips or tricks as we can from you today, especially when it comes to confidence in the workplace, because I think that's a huge thing. Here's one of my favorite stats. Actually, I laughed out loud when I read this in the book the other day. So this is maybe the favorite one that I've had, is that while women tend to assess their intelligence accurately, men of an average intelligence think that they are more intelligent than 2/3 of people. So definitely a confidence thing there. I got my pen out when I underlined that one. I was thinking, definitely bring this one up today. So what maybe practices or things that have you done that have really helped you to cultivate that confidence and empowerment in your own professional journeys?
Yeah, Jackie, do you want to take this one? Jackie's given me a lot of confidence throughout my career, and she's really good at it. So I defer to you on this one.
Well, I try. First and foremost, Amy Cuddy's Power Pose TED Talk has always really resonated with me. So I'm just going to put that out there, and we should share it in the chat. It's one I probably watch 5 times a year. But when Ann and I were prepping for this, I had mentioned one of the genesis of where I find my confidence. In college, my senior year of college, I took a course called Sales Strategy, and basically one of the final exam moments was actually a job interview. And that's because our sales professor said, if you can't sell yourself, how can you ever be expected to sell anything else, or to make the case for anything else, or to drive anything else forward? And that truly changed my life. Essentially, the lesson there was you shouldn't wait for somebody else to recognize you or to notice what you're doing. You should be able to celebrate yourself. You should be able to make sure that your boss, your boss's boss, their boss knows everything that you're contributing. And you should feel really confident and really, really, really proud to be able to speak to those accomplishments. So, the net is that the work that, especially with internal comms, I am such a fangirl for internal comms pros, the work that you're leading and the impact that you're making on your people, on your stakeholders, on the value that you bring to your organization is brag worthy. Not humble brag, real brag. There's data behind it. You're able to tell those stories. And so making sure that you're not being shy about that and that you are taking credit where credit is due is a huge lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jackie has taught us within our organization to sometimes we have a proclamation that if you've seen any of our talks, you've heard us say, which is, damn, I'm good. And sometimes you just have to really go and say it. And I think, the mentor piece is really important, finding mentors who lift you up, but also finding sponsors, the people who will, when you're not in the room, who are the people that are really going to advocate for you. And when I reflect on my career, it is certainly those sponsors that helped me all along the way, that were making the case for me when I wasn't there and really supporting me. And so making sure that we're doing that for other women as well. I think the power of the network is still, this is a really basic thing that we learn early in our career, and it never stops. Building your network, strengthening your network. I'm a member of a group called Chief, which is a network for female leaders. And it's been great because it's helped me not only connect with other women who have strength, who have, gone across many of the same hurdles that I have, but it's also, there's coaching, there's development, there's all kinds of little opportunities like that make a difference every day. The piece about confidence, it doesn't take a lot to build confidence, whether it is a power pose or saying, damn, I'm good. Another thing that I've done, I have a group chat with some of my girlfriends who also work in, corporate America. And we are just constantly like sharing success stories, giving each other praise, and little things like that. Finding the people who can really lift you up is so important. That's what, those are some of the things that have really worked for me, because let's face it, we're going to face hurdles. And as these stats tell us, we're going to continue to face hurdles. And so having the people around you that can really help you along the way is so important.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And something that I always tell myself, so I'm someone who suffers from imposter syndrome, as I imagine many of us do at times. One of the things that I'm constantly reminding myself is that not everybody is going to absolutely love you. But remember, there are people out there that do. There are people that think I'm great. So hopefully somewhere down the line, I will meet more of those kinds of people. And I think, confidence is such a huge part of that, because if you don't have the confidence in yourself, then, you're not going to put yourself forward for things. You're not going to apply to these jobs like the Hewlett-Packard study showed. But for people that are maybe struggling on the more kind of holistic side of building confidence, Jackie, is there any kind of data that we can maybe look at to help us kind of present ourselves to back up that we are, worthy of whatever it is that we're trying to go for?
Well, what a phenomenal question. I think first, of course there is. Yes. I think taking a look at everything that you're doing and understanding all the different ways that, even if the skills or the requirements for a particular role aren't one-to-one, or the words necessarily that you're using, the things that you are doing at work absolutely are going to ladder up to so much of these things. And so I think it's really taking a step back and understanding the impact that that your work is having. Do what you can to assign quantitative data to that whenever you can. There's not ever going to be a linchpin for ROI, quote unquote, or, those one-to-one metrics, but being able to go back and work with HR or work with any of the stakeholders that you have, that you're communicating on behalf of, and understanding all the different ways that you are doing those cross-functional networking and cross-functional communications, the ways that you are doing a little bit of project management, the ways that you are contributing to your overall bottom line. So again, I think it's just taking a step back and understanding the fact that even if you don't have the hardest of hard data, you are making a really big impact, and you can find quantitative numbers to back that up.
And you mentioned their qualitative data. I think that there's a real importance on that as well. It's not just the numbers. that we need. If you've had some really great feedback from someone in a performance review, or even just, a Slack message that they sent you to say, hey, I really appreciated that thing that you did, or it's had this kind of impact on me or my team, then that's also, it's data. Whilst it's words, it's still data to back yourself up.
Absolutely.
Absolutely still. And even going back to what Anne was mentioning about the career sponsor situation, all the different stakeholders that we are communicating on behalf of, follow back up with them, see if you can begin to just collect case studies. I used to keep a little folder on my computer called fodder. And those were the feel good kind of case study stories that I had about all these different types of stakeholders that I was working with, and all the different success stories that I knew that I was cultivating around my organization or within my client organizations, and so on and so forth. So I think it's really making sure that you're collecting those and feeling really, really proud, and making sure you always have a bank and a repository of them in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And actually, that's something that can really help. I was just working on a really big project recently, and there was one tiny part of it that I thought I really didn't do my best there. But right at the start, I had some nice, just a nice Slack message from someone that said, appreciate this. And I keep going back to that comment to be like, right, okay, there's at least something that's going right here. And even if it's an old message, it was still true, right? Like, that's the stuff that sometimes it is just rereading that nice stuff that people have said about you. That's that little confidence boost that you need. Amazing.
I love that. I love that. It seems like other people like that as well. And I saw a question from Jessica in the chat. The group that I mentioned is called Chief. It's not part of LinkedIn. It's a separate organization, and it's been fantastic. And I would just love if other people have networking groups or, other organizations that they've found to be helpful. Chief has been it for me, but I know there's a lot of different ones out there as well. And, a lot of when I was at larger agencies in the past, I would always get involved with the women's ERGs. I think those can be a huge resource. Again, just surrounding yourself with those people who give you confidence, who have faced similar challenges, and who can really lift you up is just so important.
Amazing. Now, I know we've kind of spoken about mentors and sponsors so far. But maybe I want to talk a little bit about the impact of having role models as well. So how do you think that the representation of women in leadership positions kind of impacts overall experiences for women in the workplace? And then maybe touch upon kind of how that can affect kind of communication effectiveness as well.
I mean, I think broadly, and maybe Jackie can get more specific, but at least broadly, there's no shortage of research that shows that having a diverse team at the top, or in any role that's making decisions or establishing communication strategy, having a diversity of perspectives that includes women is going to elevate the overall quality of what you're putting out. One of the things we also talk a lot about in our work is inclusive language, making sure, and that's a perspective that women and anyone that has any sort of, life experience outside of the white man, professional experience can make that happen. But using really inclusive language is something that is subtle, but can send signals to people within your organization that you really do think inclusively, that you really do consider lots of different perspectives, and you talk about the things that are really important to women as well. You don't shy away from topics. You don't shy away from talking about reproductive health or abortion access or things that really matter to women. Those things are so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just I'll just also mention, of course, listen, women they tend to excel in emotional intelligence and communicating with empathy. Also, there's a lot to be said about women leaders and their capabilities when communicating within a crisis, and staying calm and level-headed and very organized, and providing just a level, again, of comfort, and their ability to manage sensitive internal comms really during challenging times. So I think that there's a lot to be said there as well for leadership. And then of course, there is that mentorship. If I see somebody that, looks like me, sounds like me, has even a similar background to me in that role, or saying these things, or having that presence or that posture, it's extremely motivating.
Mm-hmm. And I think even as well, and it kind of comes back to this confidence piece, but being able to feel like you can reach out to those people, because at some point they were probably in a similar position than you were, right? And I don't think there's any harm in saying to someone, hey, and look, you're a CEO of a business. How did you get there? What can I learn from you? And again, to the point that we made on networking earlier, that just reaching out to those people and asking for support or advice, that there should be absolutely no shame in that at all, because those people were once where you were, right?
Absolutely. Couldn't
We
agree
had
more.
a really cool comment from Shelley that I just want to kind of point to, that says that where she works, they have a wellness hub within the Staffbase app with different sections and topics. And one is specifically for women, where we have various articles on women's health and subjects, which actually leads me really nicely into one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you both is, we've talked about how we can kind of help ourselves, but how can we as women and allies and internal communicators really support and empower women in our businesses?
Yeah, and it's some of what I already said, making sure that we are, because I do believe that in communications role, we do often, like, we drive the narrative for our organizations, right? We're sitting at in this position of power that we really can drive the narrative. And so it's all the things that we as communicators should do as inclusive practitioners, right? So making sure that we have representation of stories across our organization. Again, making sure that we're always using inclusive language, that we're elevating and celebrating stories of success, and then really getting in and doing some of the programmatic work. A lot of times in our world, there's a distinction between what comms does versus what HR does, but so much of that work really is, it cross-pollinates and supports one another. And whether it's looking at pay equity in your organization or training opportunities, or how your job descriptions. I mean, I think your job posts, Lottie, you said it, you started with this, about how women often don't apply for a job if they only have 60% of the requirements. One of the things that Brilliant Inc. has been working really hard at is making sure that when we post jobs, we're really thinking about, okay, what skills are absolutely crucial and what might be on here that are scaring people away and self-excluding themselves. And so being really thoughtful about that. Are you requiring things that are maybe not required? Are you saying things that might be inadvertently pushing people out and they're actually self-excluding themselves? And so just being really thoughtful and proactive about that. But I kind of want to go back also to something, the flip side of that is we want to make sure, though, that we don't veer into the land of like CEO and girl power and some of the other things that actually can be like, we think we're helping women by using those kinds of terms. But like I said, I don't want to be celebrated that I'm just a female CEO. I want to be celebrated that I'm a successful CEO, period. I know that's definitely a thorn in Jackie's side sometimes too.
It's such a pet peeve. So this is such a hot take, but I'm not a fan of Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In or even Brene Brown. Sorry. But just because, again, I don't feel like we should have to have, that, yes, Imogen, that much permission to have to do these things. But just to even close the loop on that within internal comms and telling those stories from around the business, how many of your companies have diverse supplier initiatives where, you're trying to make an effort to have diverse agencies or different types? Go to procurement and ask, are there stories that we can tell about how we are helping people source, these diverse suppliers and how we're helping them with different decisions? Because not everybody is in that seat for hiring, diverse hiring practices, of course. And then also thinking about, of course, your parental leave policies. Do you send out a newsletter that exclusively features internal job postings or job postings, giving folks who are getting ready to go on parental leave the ability to continue to opt into those communications even while they are on leave so that they're not being excluded from those opportunities is huge, and a great opportunity for you to be a champion for folks then who, shouldn't have to take a step back in their careers just because they have been, out for a few months. And so, and Patagonia also has a lot of great case studies as well about measuring the percentage of women who are returning after parental leave. That's a great barometer for you as well, and some great data to start really, really pressuring folks. Are we reporting out on this? Are we continuing to tell that story? Yeah. End of rant.
Jackie will probably rant some more about Imogen's question about like how can we build our reputation and position ourselves as leaders when we're presenting to men, because we do it all the time. And Jackie already talked about the power of data, and a lot of what we do when we're partnering with communicators is explain to them like, here's your data, here's how to present it to show that you are making a difference. And that is so often what it is, because unfortunately, a lot of times we aren't necessarily going to walk into a room, just be taken seriously sight unseen. We do have to make the case for ourselves. And so really understanding the data that we have available to us that shows the impact of our work, and then how to present that data in a really meaningful way is important.
Or just even being able to present data in a way that you feel confident. And I've made this case before as well with internal comms and even HR. You know the stories behind your data, which means that you have the ability to explain data better than anybody else is going to have a seat at that table at all. And so rest on that. Let yourself be confident with purely your ability to communicate better than anybody else that's in the room, whether it's, really data driven or not.
Say it, Jackie, say it. I was so inspired. I knew you were going to say it.
What? Damn, you're good. Damn, you're good.
I was just feeling so ready. When she starts to preach, you just can't help but get motivated.
I love that we've gone from rant to preach. It's incredible. In the space of like 2 minutes.
Again, that's right. It's not meant to be preachy. It's meant to also just be fangirly again, because I'm not actually a communicator by trade. I'm a salesperson and analyst. So I really admire internal comms pros, and it's your strength. Lean on it.
Mm-hmm. I love that as well. And I think there's that, we've talked about data a bit and how we can use the data to kind of help back up what it is that we do. But what I really love is that naturally, as internal communicators, we're storytellers. So what can we use? What story can we use this data to tell, right? Like, it's one thing going up and saying, here are a load of stats, but actually going up and saying, here's a story which is backed up by these statistics. Like, that's naturally what internal comms are good at, right? So I love that, like combining the data and the superpowers. Amazing. Now we have a couple of minutes left, so please do ask any questions whilst we still have Anne and Jackie with us. But maybe one final one from me is that, because we really want to squeeze as much knowledge as we can out from you today. So kind of one last question for me is really kind of, if you would say, what is one key takeaway that you want everyone that's come along today to take from this episode of our LinkedIn Live?
It's a great question. And I think, it's really, again, thinking about the problems that we face, thinking about the challenges and how they've evolved, broadening your thinking to include women that you may not have considered in the past. Maybe you've been really focused on the alumni network at your organization. I just was connected with somebody from Syracuse this week through a mentoring program, and I love talking to people from my alma mater. But maybe I want to think about, can I provide some more mentoring for, different types of folks that are early in their career that are facing different challenges. So I think just really like broadening your focus and finding new ways to lift each other up. Today's International Women's Day. So if you are on any of your social platforms, you will get so many emails and posts about great organizations doing great things. And it's an opportunity to pay attention. Last year when I was hiring an executive assistant, I was told about a great organization called Squared Away, which provides executive assistants who are military wives. Military wives have a notoriously difficult time getting work because they have to move around a lot. And so what a great way for me to get the support that I need, but while also helping a woman who may otherwise have faced some barriers. Another little plug that I have to give is one of my favorite nonprofits, Dress for Success, which is solely dedicated to helping women succeed and thrive in the workplace. And so finding those ways to lift each other up is really important.
Amazing. Thank you, Anne. Jackie, how about you?
In the couple of seconds, biggest takeaway is not just on International Women's Day, every day. damn, you're good. Damn, we're all good.
I love that. You use those last few seconds well. But thank you so much all for coming along today. And we really only did have a short space of time. So please feel free to reach out to Jackie and Anne, connect with them. We've already talked about networks and how important they are. So please reach out and connect and continue this conversation. And otherwise, have a fabulous weekend, everyone. And thank you again so much, Jackie and Anne, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lottie. Thank you, Staffbase.
Thank you so much. Bye.